What if I told you a teenager just 19 years old changed the course of history with 2 gunshots? That one moment set off a global chain reaction that became the First World War. Millions died, empires collapsed, and the modern world began to take shape. But here's the thing, it wasn't just the bullets that started the war. That gun was just the spark. The world was already a powder keg. So what was really going on behind the scenes? Let's break it down. So in 1914, Europe was basically a massive chessboard, full of powerful empires, secret deals, and rulers who, fun fact, were actually cousins. In the middle of it all was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, huge and diverse, trying to hold on to power. Then you had the crumbling Ottoman Empire and a rising Serbia, small but proud, and refusing to be pushed around. Now, zoom in on Bosnia. At the time, it technically belonged to the Ottomans, but Austria-Hungary was running the show. In 1908, Austria-Hungary made it official. They annexed Bosnia, just took it. The Bosnians were furious, so were the Serbs. Why? Because they saw themselves as one people, culturally and ethically connected, and they dreamed of uniting in a new country. They called it Yugoslavia, meaning land of the South Slavs. Austria-Hungary's takeover felt like a slap in the face. Out of that anger came a group called Young Bosnia, mostly students, idealistic and radical, willing to do anything to fight for independence. Now fast forward to June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, arrives in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. It's a tense day. As his car makes his way through the city, one of the revolutionaries throws a bomb. It bounces off the car and explodes nearby. Ferdinand escapes unharmed, but people are injured. Despite the attack, he decides to visit the victims in hospital, but his driver takes a wrong turn, and that wrong turn changes everything. As the car tries to reverse, it stops just meters away from 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip. Princip sees his chance, pulls out a gun and shoots. Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie are killed instantly. That moment was the spark. But behind it, the world was already wired for war. Austria-Hungary blames Serbia and declares war. Russia, who sees Serbia as a little brother, steps in. Germany jumps in to back Austria-Hungary. France is tied to Russia. Britain's tied to France. In just a few weeks, the entire continent is at war. And it doesn't stop there. Eventually, countries like the United States, Japan, and even colonies like India got pulled into the fight. It became a world war. But let's be real, the assassination didn't cause the war by itself. It was just the match. The fuel, that had been building for years. So what were the real reasons Europe was ready to blow up? First, nationalism. But not the "we love our country" kind. This was about believing your country, your people, was superior to everyone else. It was us versus them. And that attitude made war feel almost inevitable. Second, imperialism. Countries were obsessed with building empires. More land meant more power, more resources, and more bragging rights. If it had gold or people to control, they wanted it. Third, militarism. Everyone had massive armies and new tech. They spent billions building battleships, guns, and bombs. War wasn't seen as tragic, it was seen as glorious. And finally, alliances. Countries had made all these promises to protect each other, like a web. If one fell, they all fell. When the Archduke was shot, the whole web snapped. But here's something most textbooks don't talk about enough. Ordinary people didn't want this war. Most folks didn't care about imperial pride or royal rivalries, but still ended up in uniform. Governments told people that fighting was noble, that dying for your country made you a hero. Newspapers, posters, even poems made war seem romantic, like some kind of grand adventure. Poets like Rupert Brooke wrote lines like, "If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England." Powerful words, but the reality on the front lines, totally different. That's where poets like Wilfred Owen came in. He saw what war was really like. Gas attacks, mutilated bodies, young men coughing up blood. His poems told the truth. War was brutal, dehumanizing, and pointless. And then there were moments that proved soldiers didn't hate each other. In 1914, on Christmas Day, British and German troops literally put down their guns, walked into no man's land, and shared food. They sang carols, they played football for one day. They were just people. Their commanders weren't happy. They quickly shut it down, but it showed something real. These men weren't enemies. They were just caught in the middle of a mess created by people in power. Some even refused to fight. In France, entire battalions mutinied. In Russia, soldiers joined revolutions. Across Europe and America, people protested the war. Socialists, artists, religious groups, they saw the truth. This war wasn't about freedom. It was about pride, power, and empire. And speaking of pride and power, get this. The leaders of Germany, Britain, and Russia, Kaiser Wilhelm, King George, and Tsar Nicholas, well, they were all first cousins. Their grandmother, Queen Victoria. Yep, a global war started by a family feud. Real life Game of Thrones, anyone? So, in the end, World War wasn't just about an assassination. It was about nationalism, imperialism, militarism, and alliances, all boiling under the surface. Gavrilo Princip may have fired the shots, but the world was already holding its breath. And that's how the war began. What do you think? Was it all avoidable? Was the world doomed to war no matter what? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this breakdown helpful, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for more history without the boring bits. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious and keep exploring.